Hey guys, welcome to our first lecture. As you can see on the screen here, guys, Legislative Branch, Section 4. Guys, it'd be helpful to have your book with you because I'm going to make references. So I'm on page 72. So this is going to both of my honors government classes. So we're going to go over some of the notes. I'm going to try and keep these videos to about 30 minutes so, it doesn't take up, half your day and that sort of thing. We've got plenty of time to get through this stuff. But we got 3 branches of government to cover. And as you can see from this, I did put these notes in the files on Teams. Okay. I think one of them, it's actually under like manage documents, and one of them, it just shows up. So you should be able to find these. Just let's kind of go through some of this, and I want to talk about it. And what I'm going to do is, guys, I'm going to give you an assignment to ask me 2 questions from the lecture. They'll be each worth 5 points. If it's 2 good questions, you'll get 10 out of 10. If they're not good questions, and I can tell you hadn't watched the video, well, you may not get full credit on that. That'll be most of the homework type stuff that I have for you guys here. And any questions, please feel free to do the chat or on the Teams, just on the regular thing that I'm communicating with you on. That would be great. Okay, so let's start at the top here. Congress, also known as the legislative branch, bicameral legislature, we know that. Okay, you are going to need to know your representatives. And so if you go to page 75, now guys, or 77, I do have 2 pages that are both entitled 77. Okay, you'll be looking at the second one. Okay, 77. Let me get that right there. Okay, and down at the bottom here, you'll find our members of Congress from the state of Kansas. Okay, it also shows what committees they're serving on and so forth. Now, if you go back to the first page, 77, I have it crossed out, but there is a reason for that I'll come back to later to cite one of the examples of what I'm talking about in the notes. Okay, congressional elections, as you guys know, are held every 2 years. The first Tuesday after the first Monday on even-numbered years in November. Yes, these are called midterm or off-year elections. Okay, or they can take place like in 2020 at the same time as presidential elections. Okay, so I pulled up this this article for you guys. I used to have quite a few notes in here, but they're pretty outdated. Let me pull this up. This is from Pew Research. This comes from February of 2019, after the 116th Congress was sworn in. Just looking at the picture, you can see there's a lot of women in here. There is, we have more minorities. This is the most diverse Congress we've ever had. As the 115th Congress was the most diverse Congress we ever had, and the one before that. And so it continues to change. This is pretty good graph here. If you look at this, this is the total number of African Americans this is in the House and Senate. Okay, so combined 535 members. Of that number, 56% or 56 are African American, 43 Hispanic, 17 Asian, and 4 Native American. Okay, so you can see the growth in ethnic minorities from dating back 2001 to 2019. And if we look at women, this goes back to 1917. Now remember, women didn't get the right to vote till 1920, although they could be elected to office. They just couldn't vote for themselves. Okay, so looking here, this is the House and then the Senate in the darker color here. So you see basically about 25% large increase here over the last 20 years in Congress. Okay, and this, this begs to, bring up the argument: are there fewer women in Congress because men are male chauvinist pigs and they won't vote for women. Well, part of the factor is that a major factor is that women don't run for these offices as often as men do. And what is being shown to be the case is when they do run, they do tend to do well. They tend to win. Even though women make up roughly 51% of the population, they are not represented at the same numbers as nationally as they are in Congress. Okay, so but this is definitely an improvement for women, and some would say an improvement for our society to have more women involved. Moving down here, these are foreign-born people that were born not in this country. As we'll talk about, guys, you do have to be a U.S. citizen. There are different requirements for the House and Senate we'll get into. Look at this. You go back to the this is 1877. You had, close to 8%. Go back to 1789. That was our first Congress, almost 10%. Okay, so you see a little bit more of an uptick here in recent years. Okay, but stayed pretty low there. Okay. Veterans, the World War II generation was very, as you can see, adequately. Look at this, 74% of senators had served in the military, 81% here. So this would be your World War II, Vietnam, Korea generation of Americans. As that generation has aged, you can see the number falling. We do have quite a few, more recent vets. Yes, Vietnam, but also from, the Gulf War, 1990. And then the Afghan and Iraq wars as well. So, but that number is pretty startling, pretty interesting. Okay, college degree. You can see back here in 1945, about 56%, 75% of senators. Now all 100 senators have a college degree, and 96% of House members. It's kind of interesting. Religion's always kind of fun to look at. And this is what do we got here? 500. Okay, this is 1960, 60, 70, and all the way through the 20s. Okay, so as you can see here, Catholics are well represented in Congress. Protestants, a shrinking number, as you can see here. But also, if you look for a religious group that is overrepresented based on population, you can see a couple here. Mormons, they do not make up, that much of the population. Jews either, okay? And then you see an increase here. People refusing to say that they are religious, or maybe they're not. Maybe they're atheists. You do have, so 29 members either saying they're something, and it could be, obviously we have a couple Islamic members of Congress that would fit into this one here. Yeah, so that's kind of interesting to look at as far as religion goes. Okay. There's other articles you can look up on this, what percent are married. We have had openly homosexual members of Congress as well. So you can kind of look at just pretty much every segment of society. It is becoming more diverse, that's for sure. Okay, so used to be you walked into the U.S. Capitol, 50 years ago, chances are you were going to run into a white male in their 60s, probably a lawyer, and so forth. So definitely times are changing. And it is Congress is more representative of the population as a whole. Okay, so I'll get rid of that. Okay, so let's look at the salaries. Both Senate and House members make the same salary. It's $174,000 a year. The leadership tends to make more. So I'll get into what these leaders mean. The Speaker is Speaker of the House is basically the equivalent of the Vice President of the United States. So the Vice President makes $223.5, so does the Speaker. So Mitch McConnell in the Senate makes $193.4. He's the Senate Majority Leader. Okay. In your book, there's some pretty good stuff here. I think it's on the first page, and yeah, here on page 73, you can see this here. There's some non-salaried compensation talked about in here that you can look at. Members of Congress are allowed to make additional 15% of their salary from outside sources like speaking, legal practice, consulting fees. In addition, they're allowed unlimited income from book royalties. Okay.